A few years back, as the world was finally leaving the era of COVID restrictions and event cancellations behind, I stumbled on a video from a bridal salon's Instagram feed. The video was in the format of a trending reel at the time, where users would lay out various outfits or articles of clothing in a line on the ground and jump into each outfit with a transition and a caption labeling the outfit's occasion. For example, the creator might sport the same basic pair of jeans, but jump into different ways of styling it, like a going out outfit or a wear to work look. This particular video was from a bridal salon, and they were showcasing their wide range of dresses by having the video's model jump into a different gown for every occasion leading up to, during, and after a wedding. I had nothing wrong with the bridal shop posting this style of video. I thought it was a good way for them to display their collection. What struck me were the captions of each outfit. The bridal shop had lined up dresses for an engagement party, bridal shower, bachelorette party, rehearsal dinner, wedding ceremony, reception, and honeymoon send-off. That's a total of 7 occasions that a bride would need to find an outfit for, and that a couple would need to spend money planning. I was astonished by the amount of events people are having, all to celebrate seemingly the same thing: a marriage. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against people getting married. I recently got engaged to my boyfriend of almost 7 years. I'm also not against having a wedding, even a big one if you are able to afford it. I love going on Instagram and looking at the photos Vogue posts of celebrity weddings, or watching videos of women shopping for $10,000 dresses. But I am with a large percent of the population that is bothered by the billion-dollar industry that having a big day has become, and by the social pressure to participate in these costly affairs. Seemingly every culture on Earth believes in the celebration of marriage, and this tradition can be traced back to ancient history. The earliest depiction of a wedding ceremony is from around 2350 BC in Mesopotamia, but the custom was quickly embraced throughout the world and became a fixture of many social structures and religions. Wedding traditions, values, and ceremonies look different across cultures. But if we were to look at the history of weddings in the United States, we would see many major shifts within the last 200 years. Before the 19th century, marriage was not commonly seen as a declaration of love, but as an economic, religious, or social opportunity. Couples were put together by their families for financial or social gains, and weddings were conducted through religious institutions. Only in the past 200 years did the idea of getting married for love and connection become the standard. Before this, it was only an added bonus. In the 19th century, most weddings took place at the home of the bride or groom's parents and were small, intimate gatherings that only consisted of a ceremony and a meal to follow. The bride usually just wore the best dress she owned, and it was common to make the dress yourself. In the mid-1800s is when we see the upper class begin to hold more elaborate affairs similar to the weddings of today. Couples began to hire professionals to prepare floral arrangements and wedding cakes, and brides started buying a dress specifically for the occasion. It wasn't until Queen Victoria's extravagant wedding to Prince Albert that the white wedding dress became the standard. In the 20th century, weddings for the average couple remained humble family affairs. At the start of World War II, the number of weddings spiked as young people were desperate to tie the knot before the men were sent overseas. Brides got creative with their wedding decor and dresses, pinching pennies to make the day feel special during a time of uncertainty and limited expenses. Couples in the 1960s and 70s wanted their weddings to reflect their personal tastes and values. Events became more unconventional, with less focus on religious ceremonies, reflecting the broader cultural shifts of the time. The wedding industry did not become the economic giant that we know today until the 80s and the 90s. Events grew not only in size, but in grandeur. Bridal magazines, television shows, and movies offered inspiration to plan the perfect day, and the culture around having one special day became mainstream thought. Couples would hire outside help like wedding coordinators, planners, and designers to help handle the complex details of the modern wedding, bringing us into the billion-dollar industry we have today. The average cost of a wedding in the United States in 2024 is $33,000. According to Forbes, the average down payment on a house in the States is about the same at $34,000. The price to tie the knot has risen steadily since the 1980s, and in 2024, this trend doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. Despite this, the general public seems to be souring on the extravagant event a wedding has become, at least when they are the guest. It doesn't take much time delving into the world of weddings on social media to find viral threads of people sharing their wedding horror stories. From bachelorette trips costing thousands to online wedding dress scams, a lot of people are fed up with wedding culture. Even in my real life, when I speak to my coworkers, all of whom are in their early 30s, I see their fatigue for weddings. The money, time, and energy associated with showing up for their friends and family is a burden too high for many of them. The meaning of a wedding day seems to have been lost in our social media feeds, and the celebration of a marriage has become a spectacle for others to consume, and the expectations for the bride and groom are often out of reach. The wedding day has been replaced by the wedding weekend. Average couples planning multiple days' worth of activities for their celebration. The cultural tradition of large and multi-part weddings is common in places like India and the Middle East, where couples often have lengthy religious services followed by a large celebration that can be days long. The United States, though more secular and individualistic with every generation, seems to be taking inspiration from these traditional and spiritually focused cultures and is trying to expand the wedding to encompass as much time as they can. Luxury wedding planner Melissa Williams said of the phenomenon, "Couples are now seeing how fast the wedding day goes by, and there is never enough time to really enjoy every moment in a 6-hour wedding day." According to industry experts, the recent shift from the wedding day to the wedding weekend has come from two factors. First, many couples are getting married later in life and have more income to put towards a bigger and longer event. The second is the overwhelming rise in destination weddings, where people choose to have their celebration far away from their hometowns. Since couples are asking friends and family to travel long, possibly even international distances, many feel having multiple events over a few days will help make the time away and cost worth it. When I started my corporate job almost 2 years ago, I found that there were only a few topics of conversation that people would have in my office: food, vacations, TV shows, and weddings. In particular, attending the weddings of other people. You can't go one weekend without someone in the office telling me that they had a wedding to attend. And for the women, bridesmaid seems to always be their title. Possibly the facet of weddings that has gotten the most out of hand in the past decade is the expectation of the bridesmaid. On average, it costs $1,200 to be part of someone else's wedding party, with this number shooting up for destination weddings or wedding weekends. Traditionally, bridesmaids were expected to purchase a dress of the bride's choosing, often in the same styles and color, plan a bridal shower where they give the bride fun presents like lingerie and makeup, and host a bachelorette party, a night on the town before the big day. Now, the role has been inflated to the point where women are having to take several days off of work in order to fulfill these bridal duties. The outings, bridal showers, travel, gifts, and time all add up, as women are often in bridal parties of multiple friends. Just say no is often the answer I want to give when the women around me complain about the expectations of the brides in their life. One girl was asked to take a week off of work to go on a girls' camping trip. Another was asked to spend $500 on a traditional Indian gown that she would never wear again. Another had to participate in a choreographed dance. I wanted them to stand up against these outrageous asks, but we know that is much easier said than done. They often feel an obligation that goes beyond what is sensible, and often there is a past entitlement that goes from one bride to the next. I did this for your wedding, so you have to do this for mine. Asking your guests to spend money is not a new phenomenon. In the 1920s, the wedding registry was popularized by the Marshall Field's department store, now known as Macy's. The young couple would go to the department store and pick out various household items for their guests to buy them as a gift. The idea was lucrative for the industry, but also practical for young couples, who often went from living with their families to living with each other. Nowadays, couples often live together before getting married and have established careers, so the registry seems like less of a necessity. Because of this, couples have shifted to asking for honeymoon funds or just expecting guests to spend more to attend their nuptials overseas. When studying fashion in college, one of my main areas of interest was in bridal. I find the history, sentimentality, and design of wedding dresses endlessly interesting. So I would consider myself decently well-versed in the bridal wear industry. Part of my love for bridal wear is in its connection to the craftsmanship of garment making from yesteryear. The lost art of ordering a custom piece to be made at your measurements harkens back to a time before industrialization, before ready-made and fast fashions. In many ways, bridal fashion is the last living relative of couture dressmaking that is accessible to anyone, not just the 0.1%. I have been a loyal watcher of TLC's Say Yes to the Dress since it premiered when I was 8 years old, and it was clearly the catalyst for my interest in bridal fashion as an adult. During the time that the show has been on air, the wedding industry has changed significantly, and so has the process of purchasing a dress. During the early seasons of the show, it was rare to hear of a bride wanting to wear more than one dress on her big day. Such an expense was only shown for the brides with unlimited budgets. But only 15 years after the show's premiere, has the idea of having not one, but two wedding dresses for the occasion become commonplace. Scroll through the feed of any influencer on Instagram, and you will see them sporting a crystal mini dress for their welcome party, a ball gown at their ceremony, and a slinky slip at their reception. The pressure to look perfect now goes far beyond one dress. When I recently started my search for a wedding dress, I sat down with my sensible Gen X mother and asked her what she spent on her gown. She estimated around $800. And when I told her that most dresses cost around $3,000 today, I anticipated a look of horror. But she didn't take the elevated price as I anticipated. Seems reasonable to me. My mother has been nothing but frugal my whole life. If I told her I spent $3,000 on a warm winter jacket that I would have for the rest of my life and wear 50 days out of the year, she would get mad at me for frivolous spending. But a dress I only wear once? She's fine with it. Her mentality shift speaks to the core appeal of the wedding industry. It is one of the only moments in our adult lives that it is socially acceptable to be frivolous and care about flowers, shoes, dresses, and cake. We get to be Marie Antoinette only once, and it's so intoxicating that I can't really blame women for going a little overboard. It is very easy to see that social media plays a massive role in the envy that often inspires these extravagant affairs. But brides have been experiencing the pressure from the corporate wedding industry for over a decade. In the 1920s, newsletters of society and celebrity weddings and depictions in the early movie industry were used as inspiration for how everyday brides wanted to look on their wedding day. Wedding magazines, TV shows, and movies influenced many of the bridal trends of the 20th century. From Elizabeth Taylor's star-making performance in Father of the Bride to Grace Kelly's royal wedding, women of the 1950s wanted to bring Hollywood glamour into their nuptials. Princess Diana's wedding was a phenomenon all on its own, with women looking to get as close to her fairy tale as possible. Hollywood capitalized on the wedding industry momentum by pushing out many movies with a wedding at the center of the plot in the 1980s and 90s, including Four Weddings and a Funeral, My Best Friend's Wedding, and Father of the Bride, again, all of which were box office successes. In 2024, with social media as the backdrop, the wedding industry has shifted its platforms, but not its purpose, tricking you into believing that the more perfect the day, the more perfect the marriage. Weddings of today have a very similar emotional cost to that of luxury goods. The value is social, not practical. Because your wedding and engagement are such large events in your life, they are put on display and are open to critique from those in your life. People are going to talk about it in a positive or negative way. So having a unique, classy, beautiful, and curated wedding will give you the cultural capital of having good taste. There has always been a status competition associated with weddings, and in 2024, the grand prize is being featured in Vogue Weddings. Vogue Weddings is the modern equivalent to the New York Times Sunday wedding announcements. In decades prior, society women would try and outdo each other for a chance to have their celebration featured. With the change to a digital platform, the pressure to have everything picture perfect has been taken to a whole new level. One of my best friends and I's favorite weeknight activity is dissecting the latest Vogue wedding posts. We love seeing the dress, the venue, the husband, and all the little details that make these weddings so captivating. But we always find ourselves asking the same question. Do you feel the love? And unfortunately, the answer is more often than not, no. Many of the weddings feel curated for photos. You have to wonder if the couple thought more of how the wedding would look through the phone than how it would feel in real life. The extravagance reaches higher and higher levels every year. Even the Edwardian room at the Plaza isn't perfect or luxurious enough to post on Instagram. Bridget Ball, the creative director of the brand The Bar, came under fire earlier this year when she covered emergency exit signs with gold plates during her reception at the Plaza and posted a TikTok saying, "I pay attention to things most people ignore," covering all the ugly red exit signs to save the wedding photos. Social media of the 2020s has brought us our latest wedding status symbol, the branded wedding. Celebrities like Kourtney Kardashian and Sofia Richie are teaming up with luxury fashion houses like Dolce & Gabbana and Chanel respectively to brand their weddings. The outfits, venue, and aesthetics act as one big advertisement, with Vogue Weddings as the marketing agency. Most romance stories end when the couple we have spent the whole time rooting for gets married. All of Jane Austen's novels end with a wedding. According to the media, marriage is the end of your journey, not the start. The wedding is the happily ever after. It is the resolution to the couple's story. For millennials, getting married at a later age fits into this thinking as well. Where previous generations often started their adulthood with a marriage, millennials and a lot of Gen Xers waited for their education to be complete, a good paying job, and even having a house purchased before the big day is even on their minds. The wedding does feel like the last thing on their to-do list, so they want to go out with a bang, where previous generations started their adult lives tying the knot. So the feeling of it being the end of an era was not the popular train of thought. One of the contributing factors to our wedding obsession is the lack of sentimentality and formality in our modern society. In decades prior, it would seem grossly inappropriate for a person to go to the opera, church, or a fine dining restaurant in jeans and a t-shirt. The expectation was to dress up, to show respect for the environment you are in. This formality is lost in the modern era of leggings and sweatpants. We don't get dressed up anymore, so these occasions feel less special than they once did. I think any woman who has sat down to watch Bridgerton in the past few years can relate to feeling a little disappointed that our lives aren't filled with balls, picnics, and exhibitions. For most women, our wedding day is the only day where we get to wear a floor-length gown and dance in a ballroom. So I understand wanting the experience to be perfect. I think if we had more parties where people focused on aesthetics, that could help fill our wedding-sized hole. I don't want this essay to come across as a critique of marriage as a concept, or even as an institution. In fact, since getting engaged, I respect the tradition of marriage more than I ever have before. The people of ancient Greece worshipped many gods, all of great power. There were gods of the sun, moon, sea, love, wisdom, and pleasure. The Greeks also worshipped a goddess of marriage, Hera. To my modern eyes, marriage always felt very human, very man-made, so it didn't really feel worthy of God-level importance. For marriage to be in the same category as the gods of love, wisdom, and the sun seemed strange. Only now that I am engaged have I realized how powerful committing yourself to someone else, to prioritizing their needs above your own, really is. There is a validity to the ceremony of weddings. There is a distinctive before and after. The day should feel like a big deal, because it is one, and I don't want the weddings of the future to lose that sense of importance. But I think we can all agree that a change needs to be made with how we approach weddings in 2025. No couple or family should be going into debt as a way to start their marriage. In fact, a CNN study from 2014 found that the more a couple spends on their wedding day, the more likely the relationship is to fail. The easiest direction for the wedding industry to head in is simplification. I think we need to pare down the amount of events we are having around a wedding. Instead of a bachelorette trip and a bridal shower, maybe ask yourself if a boozy brunch and a night out with the gals would really be that much less fun. We need to stop assuming that a wedding is an event everyone in your life needs to participate in, when a more intimate group might be more memorable anyway. At the end of the day, you will be married, so the details really won't make a difference. The current mentality behind weddings is a recipe for disappointment. After spending all of this time and money to not enjoy yourself, to not eat the food, or hate the photos because it rained, is just heartbreaking. I think there is a way for women to have their princess moment, to feel their day is special and one of a kind without all the time, money, and stress that they have to endure now. Because we all deserve it.